There we go. All right, so starting the meeting now, and then when you're ready to call to order, Doug.
Can you get me my screen up here?
I'll give
I'm
you a-
stupid
So
here.
bad at
I got
this.
these stupid eye problems.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Doug.
Michael's already said.
I'm calling,
Thank you.
I'm calling to order the meeting of March 13th for the Natural Resource Committee. We'll go ahead and take roll, starting with Dee Dee.
Dee Dee Dalsford, Dorothy Dalsford, sometimes known as?
Dee Dee. Jerry Herman.
Doug Ely.
Nancy Brochette.
Pete Walter, staff.
Agenda analysis. I think we'll start with the process that we want to use, put on the agenda in terms of the voting. We have, it's not formally on the agenda, but we have two of us here that heard all of the interviews. One heard, I think you heard three of them, is that correct?
I heard three.
And I don't know, one process we might use is to average the ranks that come in per person. You'd be only averaging his on the ones that he interviewed. You'd be averaging ours on all of them.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
you're the statistician.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to do this.
So I think that sounds fair. See how it shakes out. We interviewed Marie
only vote
Holiday,
once.
What?
Sorry, I can only vote
Dorothy
once. That's why
I'm trying
I
to
was
rip this
passing
one up.
over.
I'm gonna rip it up.
Oh, okay.
Sierra
Like everybody else.
Schlagenhofer, and Michael Hamilton. And I can do that if you wanna.
Sorry, didn't mean to imply.
Or we can do this later on in the agenda if you wanted some more time to think about it.
Okay. Jerry wants to make a suggestion about, based on a discussion he's had with Pete.
Yeah, we've been discussing the Cove issue for a little while and so forth, and he gave me a complete set of grading plans, which I haven't looked at yet. But when I enlarge them so I can see them better, I'm sorry, that's what I'm gonna have to do. I would like to see us form a committee of interested parties, because I think we could have some influence on some thinking. One is, and Doug and I talked about this, if the trees are gonna have to be removed, and it looks like at this plan base, most of them are going away. It'd be nice to see the down woody material integrated, including stumps and other materials. I did not bring with me, I forgot to bring them, pictures of 9 truckloads worth of, log trucks worth of stuff down there, sitting up on top, that has been dumped by the city, not in a bad way for reuse, because that was what Ed Darrow was gonna do, the former developer, was integrate them into the bank and so forth. And that, along with the, I'm gonna say, 25 to 30 remaining trees to be cut down, and I could be wrong on that number, but I think I'm close, would be really nice for us to make some suggestions about the down woody material integration where it could be done possibly. And then I did bring the, where did I do it? David Frazier had, at the request of, I'm gonna say Commissioner Nocita, I'll give him credit for that, asked for an analysis of what could be done to develop a different strategy for grading the banks of the cove and creating, where possible, areas where existing trees could stay. That may not be an issue anymore, but if you'll see this profile, on your left would be the cove, on your right is the upper part of the banks, where the esplanade, where the walking trail and so forth now exists, and a better one would be built. You can see some people to scale there. And this design was done by David Evans and Associates at the request of Ed Darrow and David Frazier to figure out a way, as city administrator then, to create enclaves of plant assemblages in kind of a basin, shall we say. In other words, it wasn't just grade everything to a gentle 8-to-1 or 12-to-1 slope. It was actually kind of flowing kind of design, which is interesting. It may not be possible to even consider that, but that's what David Frazier asked happen, because Jim Nocita was very concerned as commissioner, and I was too, that some trees be retained. And it also included the reuse of the down woody material in this concept. And by the way, included some evergreens, not one Douglas fir, but a few more conifers. So, you know, I was hoping if we would be open to this, I don't know if anybody would like to participate, but,
I would.
maybe this gentleman over here too, whether you're on the committee or not. I'd love to have your expertise, but you
Yeah,
would?
I would, because look at, we're getting the tall trees in there and
Yeah.
low, you can
Right.
still look over them.
All right. You have
Rafters,
to remember
rafters
this
face up.
line that comes up here is the existing profile. What
This-
they're showing is kind of swales instead of just a gentle slope. There, you know, it's a different, it may not be possible, but I think the concern that was raised by Commissioner Nocita way back when is still valid, so.
And I also have a passion for the
Yeah.
raptors, which I always say the
Yeah.
wrong words,
Yeah,
need to swish over and have somewhere other tree to land
Yeah,
in
you'd
for protection.
advocate for some larger tree plantings. I remember that, and I think the.
I do realize that.
Habitat guy is fairly receptive to that to the extent
could
that.
you get one of these to Mike? You might want to take one here. Sure. Oh, yeah. And here's another one coming around for Pete. Anyway, so I don't want to belabor the point, but then I talked to Pete, and the grading plans he gave me are the first cut of the grading plans to be heavily reviewed by Public Works and the erosion control people and
Hey,
the
Mike's
planning
on?
department, it sounds like, several different levels of review. If we could end up having a, impact, it'd be neat. And I think the developer would be open to it. I really do.
And this might be kind of
Thank you.
beside the point, but it also may visit the
think there's something on
floodplain,
this side or on
but
the
that
other side,
might
or-
also help with the
it out?
floodplains if it goes back to the 69 to 90, 63 and 96 flood levels. The other major floods, that might still be up in this area where the
Yeah.
original ordinary high water mark is here.
So, yeah, these are the preliminary, well, this is, sorry. What Jerry and I looked at this morning was the preliminary grading plans for the phase 2 that we looked at. And there's gonna be some revisions to those.
All this stuff.
Yeah, all of
40-some
that
pages.
for the detailed development
It's
plan for
not
phase
just
2.
grading, it's other things too. I'll send this around you to look at. But that's really nice to
there'll
have that in
be-
our hands.
Some opportunity for further review on that, but.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would suggest that you proceed and maybe put in, bring in about 2 or 3 other people, whether they're on
Okay.
the committee itself, and
All right.
of course, be reporting back to us of
Okay,
what that
All right.
was on, if that's okay.
sure. Is anybody else besides Dee
I'm,
Dee?
if you're talking in the next month, I'm not gonna be around,
Okay.
so,
I'll do what I can to, I can do something in March or April. I can't do anything next week or next 2
Right.
weeks, really.
right.
But we could have several meetings. What do you sense the time of the final version coming in is?
I don't know at this point. I think they want to submit for the plans for each of the buildings in 2 phases. So along the shore, there would be 4 in one phase and 4 in another, because it's 8 buildings total. But the esplanade and the grading and that would have to occur first, so.
All right. Have they been issued a
know-
US Fish and Wildlife tree removal?
I don't think so, not yet.
Or analysis for tree
No, there's a
removal?
lot of additional permitting that needs to happen if they're gonna get started
So
this
they
spring.
may not be
but
cutting
they're-
trees this year.
I think their intent is to try to get an early grading permit this spring. So I'll
Spring
get
of
it-
this year?
Yeah, so
So
coming
that
up.
means they would be cutting trees in the spring of this year?
Yeah, potentially.
That would be after the US Fish and Wildlife Service National Songbird Treaty Act.
I'll report back on what Public Works' review is,
Okay.
because it's all gonna be issued through Public Works.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
All right.
get you some
Okay,
actual.
I'll be glad to work
Some
on the
actual
idea.
dates
And
and
I'll include
dates
you
and
too.
times.
Yeah,
At
clean
least-
me on the emails, cause
Yeah.
if I'm around, I'm just really busy,
Yeah.
and so if I'm around, I
Yeah.
can,
Well, I would say include all of our committee on the
Yeah.
emails.
Okay, I'll,
We'll
okay,
participate.
all right.
Right.
All right.
My impression
Right.
was that they weren't gonna do any work below the ordinary high water mark.
Okay,
That was, I believe, what was stated when we discussed
Okay.
this project last time.
majority of the trees are above the ordinary high water.
Exactly, yeah, I know.
Conveniently.
For some
All
reason.
right,
What's
Okay.
that, Nancy?
I said for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, before we proceed, is there anything else on the agenda analysis? Before we proceed on the election of officers, so we do have a quorum here. Whether we would want to have a full body here to do that?
That makes
And
sense,
actually
yeah.
postpone the election of officers until we filled our other seats?
No worries for me.
that's fine with me.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, let's go ahead and then put that
Okay.
off.
Yep.
Okay,
Postpone that.
public comments for things not on our agenda. All right. Okay,
Okay.
all right, now we gotta go find my agenda.
Old business,
Okay,
so before you, you have a, and I actually got some copies of this from Mike, so I'll give you. Excuse me. February 25th of this year, we had a joint work session with the Planning Commission. The purpose of that joint work session was to discuss the purpose of the Natural Resources Committee, how and when the Natural Resources Committee comments on Planning Commission decisions, an overview of NRC's past projects and accomplishments, and a discussion about the future work plan. I took some notes during that meeting, and I just bullet pointed what I had taken notes on. We gave a PowerPoint presentation, and I've given you a copy of that. And in that PowerPoint presentation, which was fairly short, we looked at this year, what had been done in terms of influencing some of the policies that have been discussed with the tree code and various other things. The decision to move forward with simplifying the Heritage Tree Code and agreement to allocate $300 a year for arborist reports to the extent that they are necessary if we make these changes. We provided comments on phase 2 of the Cove. And we talked about some other projects, including how the Kanema wetlands would be incorporated into the Natural Resources Overlay District. I'm the person who's doing that. We're treating that process as a zone change. Reason that we're treating it as a zone change is because a zone change is applicable to a small portion of the city as opposed to a legislative file, which would be applicable citywide. It's not changing the underlying zoning of the property, it's applying an overlay zone to an existing area. So what that means is the underlying land uses continue to be permitted in that sort of, in the underlying zone, subject to the conditions and criteria of the overlay district. And there would be, anyway, I won't go into too much detail on that. So that's in process. We discussed a lot of items of mutual concern, including the Heritage Tree Program, the need to explore a process for naming of local unnamed streams, geologic and geographical features through the federal process, which is little known, but does exist, and something that we want to pursue. Supporting habitat enhancement and restoration projects on publicly owned lands that include the Cove, the Scattering Canyon area of the cemetery, Philbert Run Park, etc. Discussion about whatever uses may be proposed on the upper yard area where the public works site is currently, and which will be moving from there. And then this is all based off of our work plan priorities, supporting connectivity between the Rossman landfill site, the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center, and the Cove and the river. The priorities that we'd highlighted in our work plan include continuing to improve communications with neighborhood associations, the Citizen Involvement Committee, and the business community, supporting the Arbor Day and Tree City USA program, supporting the updates to the city's local stream and wetland inventory when funded, and supporting strategies for invasive species management. Now, the bullet points that I jotted down during the discussion with the Planning Commission, I'll just go through these, and you can chime in as you feel. There was a discussion about what is a formal mechanism by which developers can contact and interact with the Natural Resources Committee. So we've got a section of the code that's being updated to encourage that interaction. And there was also discussion about the 2008 Planning Commission decision to reduce the required vegetative corridor width on the code from 200 feet to 50 feet. And the concerns expressed that that decision should have been at a higher level, either through the city commission and definitely with better communication and input from the Natural Resources Committee. And we've explained that, and we've discussed how the current process is getting better. It's more transparent with better notice. There was a discussion about ways to formalize that higher level review for additional review by the city commission, and what thresholds in the code would trigger that. Currently, most discretionary decisions about land use would reside with the Planning Commission, with the exception of those that go up to the city commission, like zone changes and legislation. It ultimately has to be approved through the city commission level. But for a lot of these codified decisions that are within the realm of land use, the Planning Commission does get to make the final decision. The question really is there a threshold with respect to natural resources that really should have greater oversight? And I think that was something that probably prompts further discussion with the Planning Commission as we move forward. We discussed tree preservation, tree mitigation. I think one of the factors that one of the commissioners said is that there's so much information that the Planning Commission in particular, has to consider in order to make a well-informed decision and a balanced decision, that they really just wanted to stress that. We talked about the annexation policy and the concerns about tree removal on properties that are not yet within the city. Now, this is something that we've talked about at the Planning Commission level and the City Commission level at quite a lot of detail. And I think the decision, or at least moving forward, there's going to need to be a little more public process involved in that before it's adopted. We have to involve the county, and we have to involve the community who are going to be affected by it to a huge extent. It's a complicated policy. The one that is used by Lake Oswego is a non-binding resolution, but it does mean that it's a factor in annexation, and it is a factor that we have included in our code updates as a factor in annexation. So it gives the Planning Commission and the City Commission one extra factor for consideration of whether a annexation is truly in keeping with city policy. And annexations are highly discretionary decisions, and they have conditions attached to them that come out of the public hearing process, and that is not necessarily in the code. So just want to make you aware of that. They can address impacts that deal with transportation, natural resources, anything like that. And part of the concern that we've heard about what happens when large trees are removed, or when there's a big change to the condition of the land before it's developed within the city, is it changes the character of that neighborhood for irreparably. So that's a concern. talked about ways to accommodate tree preservation in the public right-of-way through more flexible street standards. I think with Public Works input and approval, that is a possibility. We're talking about meandering sidewalks around large trees and incorporating new standards for sidewalks that allow for root growth and that sort of thing. With that, was there any other things that you wanted to stress about the joint work session for those of you who were in attendance?
I think there's two of us.
I was there for it. No, I can't think of it, although, I did cut out an article and I didn't bring it, it's in my car. I think Lake Oswego also said, passed a resolution that when they're cutting down trees, they have to put up a sign
Oh, sure,
A
yeah.
public sign, just to let them know that this tree is removed. If you have something to say about it, speak up now
Yeah,
or
they
forever hold
have
your peace.
they have a tree permitting process that some cities have where you have a type 1 level review, we can get a tree permit for cutting over the counter if it's just one, maybe 2 trees a year that are under a certain size and they're on private property and they're not in a sensitive area.
Correct.
And then
Yeah,
they'll have a
type 2.
higher level review when you're proposing development. And you gotta get a type 2 permit, or when you're going above that threshold. And you pay more for that review, and then there's notice involved. So
Right.
if to say tree removal is proposed on this property, whether it's a development property or not, then the public would get to comment on it.
Which that spurs
Yeah.
the public comment.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then there's a certain level of mitigation required based on what is ultimately approved. So Gresham has a similar process as that, and I think Portland does too.
Yeah.
And Oregon City has not gone that direction yet, for a variety of reasons. The one is the discussion about carrots versus sticks and how you should incentivize things as opposed to regulate them. But beyond that, we've also talked about, staff resources and funding and the lack of expertise on the city staff with respect to urban forestry, except for lands that are under park control or public work control where we can contract out for arborist work and that sort of thing. And we do pay money for contracting arborists to do that kind of thing on city property. So that's where that discussion is. And I haven't seen any direction from the city commission that we wanted to move towards that kind of a system yet, but the planning commission certainly did, as one of the larger policy recommendations outside of the current set of code amendments, is to talk about tree regulation in a very broad context and look at whether the 4 chapters that we currently have regulating trees can be simplified, consolidated, and improved to deal with all of these issues in a more cohesive way.
Yeah, I'm going to say something. I was very disappointed in that we only had 2 members of our Natural Resource Committee at that work session. I don't know if anybody reported in that they wouldn't be coming, but we had most of the planning commission there at a joint work session, and almost 2/7 of our body. Well, I guess 2/6 really, but 1/3.
You and who?
Dee Dee?
Pardon?
Dee Dee and I. So,
Yep.
I think we have to have a better way of people communicating when they're not going to be able to make a meeting. If people couldn't make it for one reason, I wouldn't have been so bothered, but the fact that there was only 2 of us there was extremely disappointing.
And we had empty seats. That's not fun when we have empty seats.
No.
I intended to go and then totally,
Yeah,
it didn't get written
it
on
just
my
happens.
calendar, and then and it was like 9 o'clock that night, I went, oh,
Well,
I'm
there will be
supposed to go to
more
a
work
meeting.
sessions.
Yeah, I think there's probably
Okay.
more work sessions this year, judging, we've got a new planning commission essentially with 4 new members. And they're just starting to get used to the code, and so And the code's gonna change soon, in May, when the Equitable Housing and Development Code.
I find.
I would say our comments were well received by the planning commission.
Yeah,
And I
would
also
say so
think
too.
that, I don't know how many working sessions you can put into a year, but I really find when you do a work session, something gets done. And people make a decision kind of going on. There's real progress being done at work sessions. And the input that's put in there, whether it's what they want to hear or not, it's listened to.
I see that, they talked several times about the NROD 50 to 200 foot to 50 change.
Yeah, that was.
Was that their decision?
No, that was, we brought it up as an issue.
Pardon?
We brought it up as an issue.
Was it identified that they made the decision to go along with
Well,
that, or?
they are the people that weren't there at the time. That's the point.
Oh.
It's a new, I mean, it's a new
Oh,
body of
different
people.
plan, different
I mean,
plan.
it's
Commission.
2000
Yeah, I think it's
that occurred.
completely different.
The
Okay.
thing is, our emphasis,
Yeah.
it shouldn't occur again.
Right.
And they were really receptive to that. I
Right.
mean,
But that was only in relation to code, it's not now
Like,
50
say-
feet.
Oh,
routinely.
right, it's just
no,
relation to that
No, it only
particular
happened to the code, but the point is
Yeah,
that, we weren't.
Right, no,
we weren't in
I
the-
know.
Yeah, we weren't
Right.
in.
They were into that
Okay,
conversation.
All right, okay. Well, I'm glad you brought it up,
Yeah.
you know. Well,
And we brought it up more than once, just to let you know. It was not it certainly was not a one-time issue. It was brought up several times.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that the planning commission definitely wants to work more on. Okay,
if you don't mind me asking, what are thresholds that trigger a CC review? CC?
well, that, I don't know.
Compliance, is that code
That's-
compliance?
City commission, sorry.
Oh, city commission.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, that's something that if you're going to codify it, it has to be very clear what it is, Normally, things like that could be codified fairly easily, like, you have a numerical threshold that, a certain percentage change or a request for a reduction in a vegetative corridor of a certain threshold can be, does require city commission or is a type 4 decision, that sort of thing. Or it just means that you provide notice to the commission and, there's a procedural component to it that we would need to incorporate into the code or a policy. And I don't know, we haven't really discussed what that is yet. Yeah. An example of making a change to the code to require a higher threshold review was the one, Doug, where we required that any new crossing of a stream with a utility line be a type 3 decision, and that was from the 2008 code amendments. And it was a specific line that went into the code based on input from the Natural Resources Committee. So that kind of thing is doable, but it has to go through that process, And so we will be revisiting the code when we've got other processes going on, such as the adoption of Beaver Creek Road concept plan implementation strategy. So that includes adopting zoning for the area east of Beaver Creek Road, which will be a map amendment as well as code amendment process. So the code is going to be open again this year, probably towards the latter half of 2019. And it may include overlay district reviews.
Are they having a subsequent, public meeting on that? I know I missed one.
Yeah, it's, there's gonna be many more meetings on
Yeah.
that. It's just in the early stages yet, yeah. But, they're not far along. We've got, the same consulting team that has helped us with the Equitable Housing Code, working on that process, yeah.
Could you make an effort to get us notified when that meeting? those
Yeah,
meetings
Christina is the planner that's heading that process up, and I will mention it to her for sure. And hopefully we can get a presentation fairly soon on that process. Yeah, because it's, the resources over there that are affected are Trimble Creek?
Yeah, Thimble.
Thimble, sorry.
Yeah.
And there's also these, there's power line easements there. There are some tree groves that were identified in the concept plan, and a lot of open space and, trails shown conceptually in that concept plan that require a lot of money if you're gonna acquire them and implement them and maintain them in perpetuity and exact from the developer that land. So how that's implemented will be a component of this process. So, yeah. And it lends itself to, discussion of what's gonna be a trail, where are the vantage points gonna be, what are view sheds gonna be, is there possibility for interpretation and that sort of thing down the line when the community is ultimately built out there. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Under any other discussions there on the things emanating from the work session?
I didn't have a chance to talk to Laura about her perceptions of the Planning Commission joint work session today. I'd like to revisit this at the next meeting based on input from Laura, and possibly from the other commissioners as well, because there's always time to think about things after the fact. And
I'm going to ask you if you can, we had taping of the decision on the planning commission in 2008, don't we?
we do, yeah.
I think it would be good for us to actually see that and what transpired and what the logic was
I
there.
think it should be on video. I'll check.
Okay.
Yeah.
In any case, there'd be some kind of record of it one way
Oh,
or another.
yeah.
I think it'd be a good,
I would
I
like
wonder what logic process went into it and what the
Yeah.
reasons were, and I think,
to.
we have a knee-jerk reaction, and it's legitimate because we weren't involved.
Right.
But I think it'd be good for us to know what the logic was that went into that decision.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, to
That'd be
look back
nice,
2008, yeah, most definitely.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Preliminary discussion regarding extending the code on the heritage tree. Do you want to begin?
I will do that.
All right.
While you're starting, I'll hand out materials.
Okay, so Dee Dee and I got together, I don't know, several weeks ago, about a week after we had the last
Yep,
meeting.
it's about 3 weeks.
Yeah, and we decided that we wanted to rewrite the Heritage Tree Code, and we didn't want to start from scratch. And so we had the new one, and we had the old one, and so we kind of looked at which one. We were thinking maybe of going back to the old one, but then we realized there was a lot of new stuff we would have to add to it. And so rather than do that, we took the new one and kind of tweaked it. And I think it still needs some work. But basically, the main changes, and I guess we could just go through this, what Pete's handing out.
Yeah, we tried to make them sweeping and easy.
Yeah, and there's still some
because
places
why make
where
it
I
so
think,
complicated?
I think there's still a lot of places where we could simplify it more, and that was Pete's suggestion, which I totally agree with. Like this copy that he handed out, this is kind of what I went through and did. Note we added or horticultural value to the purpose, and way back at the end of the code, it mentions that, but it doesn't mention it up here in the very beginning, so I just added that.
Okay.
From the table for tree eligibility, we specifically took out the redwoods, the giant redwoods and the coast redwoods, because they're not native species to this area. And we thought 12-inch redwoods, coast redwoods grow, a 12-inch redwood is about 3 years old. I mean, they grow very rapidly.
Really fast.
So we just said we're gonna put those under other conifer trees. So they, you know, redwoods would still be included, they're just not specifically pulled out. We weren't dissing redwoods. But we made any kind of a non-native tree, you have to have a 20-inch DBH, a minimum 20-inch DBH, which is not big for a redwood anyway. We also took out the arborist requirements. You know, the hazardous tree down here, it's under
Certified arborist, yeah.
definition, yeah, certified arborist.
Which definition is that?
Under, it's,
I'll go back to the other one.
yeah, this long extended document,
okay.
because I kind of highlighted things.
Yeah, okay.
So-
Sure.
Shoulder.
It
then you can
presents a
see it.
significant risk the life of property is determined by a certified arborist. I mean, I'm not sure that you need a certified arborist all the time. I mean, I think the city could, I'm sure there's people in the public works who could tell you that. I think most people can tell, you know, if a tree dies, I don't need to have to hire a certified arborist to tell me that my tree is
Yeah.
90% dead. So it maybe put something in there instead of, you know, maybe,
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe if it's contested by somebody, then they want to bring up a certified arborist or something that says.
I think Pete's
know.
comment was placed with the community development director.
you
rather
could
than-
either do that, or you could say by the city if you want to get even broader.
Okay.
But, you know, I mean, that way there's more discretion. You don't have an arborist report.
Right,
If, in the course of making this determination, you this community development director or whoever's making the call in the city decides that an arborist report is a necessary component of that decision, they could require it without having it in the code.
right,
So,
yeah. If it's iffy, maybe, but yeah,
right, so there's easy, yeah, I think that's an easy change to
Okay.
make. Yeah.
yeah, I just-
And we,
the city would be
I
good.
also wanted to add that we need to make sure that this definition in 12.32, whatever it ends up being, matches the definition in 1704, which is the definition that we looked at
Okay,
previously when we were amending the tree code.
okay,
And that definition also not have this certified arborist
arborist, okay.
language. In my opinion.
right. And then the next change we made was your third page. I highlighted in yellow the
Yeah,
major
good.
things,
See it.
just so it would stick out. It went on and on about the fact that if it was in the right-of-way, public right-of-way, that you didn't necessarily have to have the owner's permission, but then in the back of the code, it said you had to have the owner's permission, so it
And
was.
the owner was responsible, so
Yeah.
it was contradictory and.
So I think we should just take this out, and you have to have, you know, notified and consent to the, you know, the, has to be, to the property owner has to agree to it, basically, and sign off on it.
Consent of the abutting property owner shall be a consideration. And this is your edit, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's some ambiguity here.
yeah, I think it still needs a little bit of, this was like something we were like, we need to talk about
Since it's
this.
a public street tree and it's now going to become a heritage tree, the public street tree code still applies because the public street tree code requires that the abutting owner be
Right.
taking care of the tree.
Right,
So why should not they have the right to consent to
Right.
to the nomination?
nominated, maintenance of the nominated tree of this code must consent to the nomination, right?
Yeah, rather than it just be a factor for consideration and allow the discretion of the city commission to
Right.
make that call without the consent of the
Yeah,
owner.
and if you actually, when I got back to the code, the end of the, so,
Yeah.
There's a lot of problematic language the way it is currently written.
Right.
From a legal standpoint, it's ripe for challenge.
right, right.
Yeah.
So we'll just take all that yellow out and just say that if it's a street tree, the owner has to consent.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
The failure of the abutting property owner to receive the notice of nomination or to consent to the nomination shall not affect the final determination.
Right, but then at the end, it also says that the owner has to consent to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that doesn't even make any sense in the
Yeah, so-
code itself.
You know, those are right-of-ways and the properties, should a street ever be vacated, that property goes back to the owner.
Right,
That's
So
correct.
it's, the public is using it and by law, but the point is the property actually is part of the property
Right.
of the owner.
right. And the owner's responsible for the trees and
Yeah.
the sidewalks, yeah.
And, yeah, and then with this designation, there's a higher level of protection associated with it, because
Right.
it's not just a street tree anymore, it's a true public tree.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And then further down, these were really minor. I just thought that if we have this in the code that, you know, there's a form that you have to fill out, there should be a link right there
Right.
so somebody can click on that and go to the actual form. And then the other things we added were they were coming off that form, things the form asked. It asked for the approximate height, the canopy spread, the diameter, the approximate age of species. So that was just stuff that's on that form. Okay, and then the next page, okay, now this is where we made some suggestions about increasing the amount of time, and Pete actually doesn't like any of that. He thinks it should be even simplified more. And one of the things I did was I went and looked at what the city of Portland's Heritage Tree Program does. They actually have a date that they have picked every year. All nominations for heritage trees are due by like May 1st. I don't even remember what the day is, but there's
Yeah,
a
you're right,
specific
I
date.
remember reading that,
And then
yeah.
the city has a year to process it. So that would be easier than all of this gobbledygook.
would.
Like just,
Yeah.
we could pick a date, Arbor Day, I don't know what day.
And you know what, I remember reading that going, oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, so,
Because you could generate publicity off that at the same
Yeah,
time.
you're
Remember,
right.
don't
You could
forget,
say
you change
don't-
your batteries in
Yeah.
your
Well,
your
we may not
alarms,
be-
and nominate your
we
tree.
may not be setting our clocks back or forward
Right,
anymore,
you know,
so,
but I
but, you know, we could do May Day, we could do
Arbor Day.
Arbor Day. I don't, what date, anybody know the date
Coming
for
up,
Arbor Day?
any moment now,
Arbor Week for Oregon's the first week, so, first week of April.
April,
Okay.
yeah.
But Arbor Day is whenever you proclaim it, so.
We could just say, well, I don't want to say April 1st, because then it's
Well, I
April
think it's the
Fool's
first
Day.
Saturday, I think it's the first Saturday
National
in
Arbor Day,
April,
yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, you're right.
But I
because
think having a date would
Yeah.
be, because nobody's going to know what Arbor Day is anyway, so.
That's true.
Do we want to just pick a date?
April 15th.
There you go.
Tax day.
Celebrate.
It's away from
The
April
eyes
Fool's
of
Day.
April.
That's
The
good.
eyes of April.
Do you want me to rewrite this, Pete?
I say June
And
28th, my birthday.
I'm willing to,
It's your birthday.
you know, there's not that much to do, but I'm willing to change that, so it's
can
not,
change it.
Yeah,
that
if we
timeframe.
wanted to take that
Today's my
language
birthday.
and I'll
you
go
know,
steal from Portland, yeah,
And we'll,
Yeah, Portland has it's nice and simple.
yeah,
It's easy.
yeah.
what role?
We're gonna talk about nurturing. What day is Mother's Day?
That's usually the second weekend,
Who,
but we
makes
can
the
get confused with
decision
Derby
in
Day
the city
also,
of
so.
Portland?
April 15th.
Is it like,
Well, the city of
board?
Portland has a city
they have
forester.
a city forester, yeah.
And so I'm gonna have to go back and read it. I know
Yeah,
the city
sure.
forester kind of says yes or no. And they also had, like, they actually have a limit. I think they have so many heritage trees, they don't want to add a whole bunch more, like they don't want 25 big leaf maples to be
Oh.
heritage trees.
Right.
So I think there's a limit to, like, if they get certain numbers of trees, so you can nominate them. What was it?
Right, and hence
Honorable?
what I was saying, I was getting heavy
Honorable
notes.
trees, there was another term that they used, and I don't think we need to even get into that, because we're just trying to get heritage trees at this
Right.
point, but,
Well, I think that that's a very good decision. I think I think it provides a point in time for everybody involved, including
Right.
staff and
Right.
the public to shoot for and
Right.
elected.
because, I mean, we're looking at the time frame, and it's basically, you had whoever
30
this went
days for
to
this, 60 days
had
for that,
30
and-
days, and
Yeah.
then they had to send it to the Natural Resource Committee.
It's good.
But if it was on Parks property, it had to go to the Parks or the Parks
It got very
board first.
convoluted.
And then it had to go to the, and there wasn't enough time in there, considering that some months we don't meet, and
And
Parks
some
is
people on
probably the
vacation,
same,
and
and
people
so.
go away.
I think a year, if we just say it's
From
due
this
on
date to
April
this date.
15th, and you've got, the city has a year to do all the processing and get back to you, and,
And if the person doesn't finish their end of it 1 year, start all over again,
right?
which is okay.
And if you get it in ahead of time, somebody
Yeah.
could look at it and say, well, you're missing this, and that gives you a little bit
Yeah.
more time. But like the final application is due.
Right. I
Okay.
like that idea.
All right, so that makes everything a lot easier.
I like that 1 year.
The little bit further down, it's a Natural Resource Committee review and recommendation, which is B on that same page. And so I don't know that we need the time frame in here, but I don't know if you want any of this in here. This just talks about
These
who
are
has to be,
Things that are potentially just
That's
policies.
where we are, Jerry.
yeah.
Don't need
where we are.
necessarily be in the code. I do think
Just
that maybe
point
you want to state
You
that
can't see this, so it's all right.
these
Types of-
decisions, these bodies need to be involved somehow
Okay.
during that year process, you know?
Right.
Because it does need to
So
come to
the Natural
NRC.
Resource Committee reviews it, and then the park, if it's on public land, the Parks Department will, or the
Yeah,
Parks.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But the timeframes are not as important.
Okay,
It looks the same, I just
If we're
wrote
gonna
it
have a
all.
deadline.
okay.
Unless anyone has any concerns about
And then the
that.
city commission decision will, I'll just say it'll be made within, I'll take this language, but say it'll be made within 1 year
See it very well.
by April 14th of the following year.
See it very well.
Before you go off this page,
Yeah.
I was looking at your blue edit. When, it was brought up that Waterboard Park had what was it, a Heritage Grove, Pete?
A designation of the city commission to make Waterboard Park Heritage Grove, that's correct. And it
Okay,
was done on
now,
a
is there
certain
any
date.
terminology that's used to define what a grove is?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
there was some
defined in here
discussion
earlier.
about
Okay, the
that.
reason I'm bringing
Yeah.
this up, we said,
Yeah.
which the tree or stand is located. And
Oh, it's stand, actually, is the terminology.
Is the stand the
Yeah, we
terminology?
changed it from
Okay,
grove to stand.
okay,
So we don't have groves anymore, we're gonna have
We don't have groves
stands.
anymore, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you see the word
Oh,
grove.
there's tree stand, yeah, it
We
says,
worked really
okay.
hard on that, Richard Craven
Yeah.
and myself and others,
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
okay.
Yeah.
to,
Do you know how that was designated as a stand? Jerry Herman and I didn't recall it going through the Natural Resource Committee.
in Waterbury Park.
Yeah,
It's on the record, I know the date is on the website, so we'd have to go back and look at the city commission minutes of that day.
Well, I
Yeah,
believe
'cause
it was
it-
because of the nature of the oak and ash assemblage.
yeah.
on that
Yeah,
knoll.
I just wonder if it emanated from the Natural Resource Committee though.
You know, I'll tell you where Jim Nacita and Bill
Yeah. Daniels?
Daniels
Yeah.
and others that were concerned in there about incursions, and I was too, to a point, but then I went up and looked at it carefully with Jim, and I'm the one that got poison oak, and so I wasn't concerned anymore.
Sorry, we
Why did I
get
get
Jesse
poison oak?
Bus and put a case
And I
of
told
poison oak
him
terrible.
there's poison oak up here, and I kept them out of there, and guess what? I got it, bad.
It's only on the left side.
I've done that, pet poison.
Your
oak.
fact-finding mission is
Don't you
open.
recognize the plant?
Well, yes, I did, but I was, yes, I do. I should know better.
when I get it and I go to the doctor and they go, do you know what poison oak is? And I go, I'm a botanist, yes, I do.
You got one of the most beautiful leaves.
They do, and they
Very
turn
beautiful.
pretty red.
Very glossy, very
I mean, they're
attractive.
inviting you to.
Okay, so the notice, all that notice stuff I'll
Okay.
put, like Pete made a
So-
comment about a section called NRC recommendation, but that's basically what B is.
Yeah,
It's-
exactly.
So
I
I'll tweak
overlooked
that, I'll add
That's
that
fine.
over to that
Yeah.
and make this much smaller. And then we have the designation, and then we go like another page. It's got site and condition criteria. These are the things that you have to meet
Yeah,
in
this
order
is the
for
meat
it to
and
be.
Potatoes of the
Yeah, this
thing.
is the meat and potatoes, and the site and condition criteria, and it says all. A
Are we-
is the
where are we
fact
at?
that on 2 pages past where the last yellow section is.
Flip it one more over. Flat, I can flip.
It looks like this.
Yeah, it's blue, there's no yellow, it's got blue lines,
Yeah, okay,
it's got blue lines like this,
Is that it?
okay.
So
right.
tree, heritage criteria,
yeah.
That's not it.
at least,
No, it isn't.
well, we can talk about
This is
this.
it. That's not it.
Flip one more maybe.
Which one, you're right, you're right.
I'm right here,
Yeah, on this
Yeah.
side, this side.
yeah.
That's it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So basically,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the site and condition criteria.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The section before just is everything that basically says what it has to be considered a heritage tree or
Yeah,
stand.
At least one of those have to be met.
Yeah, and so all of these site and condition criteria all have to be met. The first one is the arborist report. I completely took it out.
Fair enough.
I said, the tree species is not listed as invasive or on any regionally accepted plant list, and proposed on public property, the owner has to say yeah. And this is actually the original wording that said if it's on public right-of-way, the abutting private property owner consents. So it says back here that it had to consent, and earlier it said they didn't, so.
You're right.
This item used to be B and now is now A or something? I'm just looking at.
Yeah.
The tree is
Yeah.
not listed.
So we
as
took out
A
A.
is
A
removed.
was the arborist
Okay,
requirement, so we took A out, so we've
Yeah.
got A and B.
And this makes reference to a protective covenant. And I think, yeah, I've got copies of that covenant template language
Right.
here, so I'll hand that out.
well, this business of the tree not being listed as invasive, what do you do with black locust? Every settlement in Oregon,
Yeah,
they always brought black locust in because they
Probably
needed,
not gonna be a heritage tree.
that's really sad.
Oh,
Well, I'm just saying, and the major settlements in Oregon always brought
Right.
pioneers, that plant with them.
right,
Just talking,
I know,
you know.
but that's the original language, and I have no
Okay,
problem
well,
with that.
I won't fret over it right this moment.
Okay, here's the heritage tree nomination
Yeah.
form.
That's the Clackamas County process. This is the West Lynn process.
Okay,
You know what I'm talking about? It's
Absolutely.
that road that's
Oh, yeah.
down
Just for
over
reference, this is the
Well,
covenant.
that's
Next parking lot?
Yeah, there's black locust
So-
there.
okay,
There's 30,
Yeah.
beautiful.
And what
And
it
I have
says.
this is the
my
covenant,
neighbor's
so
yard.
if it gets
Well,
declared.
I'll get biggest.
There we go, more handouts for you.
Oh.
These are other people's stuff, and then the actual covenant that if you get.
Come with a story.
Oh, my,
Okay, so
If you know
further
it's got a
down
story.
on this same page where we took out the arborist,
okay,
it gets down to protection of heritage trees and stands. And it talks about what you can and can't do, and when you get down to C,
ABC,
if the tree is permitted to be removed due to poor health or hazard, and is as determined in a certified arborist report.
okay, you took that.
Should we
yeah.
just say as determined by the city? Because, there's a huge black walnut that used to be on High Street that just up and died within like a month. It was fine, and all of a sudden I drove by, it was dead. We
Right.
don't need an arborist to tell us that tree died.
Yeah.
So,
I think, yeah, so
Yeah.
here's the question I have on this. So the arborist report, that part of it goes away.
right,
You've got a recorded covenant. That covenant indicates that the city has the right to enforce any restriction or requirement of the public tree code.
right,
What it doesn't say is that a request to remove a heritage tree has to be approved by somebody. Whether it's a city commission decision or not, having made the initial decision to nominate the tree, I guess that's my question, is that
right.
how much authority do you give the city in the decision of allowing the tree to be removed? Where does that interaction occur?
Well, under the covenant, under number 1, may not be removed, topped, otherwise altered unless the declarant or declarant's successor, as appropriate, obtains a permit from the city in accordance
Oh,
with the
okay,
city's
so
code section.
It's treated like a public tree.
Yeah,
Okay. So that process, when you go to that section of code, which is currently being amended,
right,
to not require an arborist report and allow the discretion of the community development director.
yeah. I think that's still fine, because again, it says earlier that you can't take it down because it's dropping leaves or fruit or something like
Right.
that.
These are,
or blocking your view. And so if we're saying, basically, this is saying it's permitted to be removed due to poor health or hazard as determined by the city,
By the city, I think.
now
just
this,
by the city,
And the city could make a determination if an arborist is
Right.
required.
yeah.
right?
Did you want us to comment on the Clackamas County procedure?
He handed that out
Yeah,
just
I
to
handed
give us
that out.
some.
I haven't actually read that.
I read it, it's remarkable. It even covers groves in a different way, a collection of trees and a notable grove or avenue or other.
But see, this says once the nomination
I
received,
just
they'll
was
be
looking at how
inspected by a
simple this is.
certified arborist,
Well, but advisor it says, certified arborist advisor to
right?
the historic review board, or, to the historic review board.
Well, I
To
know
the
that our
Clackamas County.
HRB doesn't want to be involved in tree designation.
Right.
They want to be involved in structures and architecture and
Right.
that sort of thing.
Right.
Just can't believe how simple it is.
But this isn't code, this isn't the code.
This isn't the code, this is their,
not the
this
code,
is
this
their
is the
nomination
application.
form.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a lot simpler,
This isn't the code.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So what's our application look like?
Well, let's get through this first. I mean, she,
Yeah.
I mean,
All right,
she's
this
done all
you've
this.
done a lot
The
of work.
application
I didn't
form
even
can
have
be
it.
tailored to match
But the
whatever is
application
done.
form is, Dee Dee, did you bring your application
Oh,
form?
let me see, I
Dee
didn't
has a
bring that
file.
I filled out one.
Sorry, and the
Okay.
file is in the backseat of my car.
All right, all
I have
right.
an
Yeah,
ID
that,
file.
our current application
I
form
usually
needs
do
some
carry all
work.
those applications. It's a one-page application.
Oh, and then the only other comment I made was the fact that right now we put these plaques at the base of the tree, which are easily removed and stolen and stuff, and Portland actually puts the plaques on the tree. They're drilled in such a manner that, I mean, you could still steal them, but it takes a
It would
lot
take
more
a
work
bit.
than just pulling it out of the
Right,
ground and
you just
running
can't
with it.
pick it up out of the ground and chuck it off.
And they're
the
actually
thing.
smaller, they're actually relatively attractive,
and
and
they're
the
solid.
trees grow up
Yeah.
in the,
And
So
hug
they
around
attach
them
it
at
somewhere
times.
Yeah.
And if it
The screws
completely
aren't
devours
deep
it.
enough that they go in the cambium and the bark won't grow over it.
well, eventually they will. I mean, but they stick out, they initially stick out. I've seen old heritage trees in Portland where it's kind of starting to grow around it a
Unitarian
little
Church,
bit.
you can see it right there where it's covering
really
around the
good.
person's name. It's so precious.
The only, there's
You
one
guys did
other
a lot of
thing
work,
here.
a lot of work.
The fee, the penalty for unlawful removal of a heritage tree is set in the code here at $600.
Okay, is that still, I didn't know if that was
I
correct
don't
or
know, is
not.
that in the current code or not?
Where is this?
The, under needing the certified or.
Right, it's right here, the
Let me look
D
that up on the current
page one, two,
code.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
The penalty for unlawful removal of a heritage tree, at least $600 for each tree removed or damaged.
Here,
It's at the very,
Oh,
come back one.
the very bottom.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Because there's been some discussion about that
Put together different than
fee,
mine, or you fold yours different?
and I thought it had been
Go back over
increased
like that. See,
to,
I lay mine out, so that's what I meant. I get it, don't you worry about it, I don't mind helping you with your eyeball.
I'm just checking the code right now.
okay.
Right down here at the bottom,
Yeah, I can rewrite this and
here.
simplify it and send it out to everybody. You want me to send it just to you or just to the whole committee?
Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
Oh,
I would send it to the whole committee.
The whole committee, okay.
Yeah.
I'll simplify it and I'll send it out to everybody.
you did a really good job, both of you guys.
So I guess
Very nice.
the only question I have is $600 a sufficient penalty or
You know
not?
me, I'd always throw up
I'd
extra
say
more
no,
on it,
but
I mean, I would think
There
that
have
you
been some
could up
strong
that
feelings
price on that
about
one, but
that from the planning commission based on the tree removal in Waterport Park, and I believe the,
Well, yeah, but that was trespassing and everything else.
right, and I can't remember what part of the
I
code.
could look up and
that
see
came
what
about
Portland
with
is.
Proof of replacement, and there, you could not replace those trees, so that was a priceless
Yeah.
kind of a determination.
I could look up what Portland
Okay.
charges.
But I actually think
And then
that
I'll put that in and
$600 is cheap.
I'll highlight that so you guys
Yeah.
can weigh in.
Yeah,
$300,000.
I'm sure they've given a lot.
Somebody that owns $1 million house probably would have no problem coming up with $1,000. Somebody who's, I mean,
Right,
yeah. so
I agree, if
think-
you
I
wanna
think-
take down a tree, pony up.
Well, no, but the point is,
but it's a heritage tree and it's not, you're not taking
Right.
it down because it's diseased or damaged. You're
Right.
taking it down
I
because,
Because
understand.
it's a heritage
Yeah.
tree, so pony up.
And basically, you're taking it down without a city permit as well.
Correct, and then if you're gonna do that, you're probably putting something there that will increase your value of your home, probably $50,000 to $80,000 if you're putting on a substantial addition or another little house. If that's the reason why you're taking down that tree. Pony up, I'd have to pony up, I would pony up.
Well, I will tell you this, that in terms of these ancillary dwelling units they're talking about coming, nobody's gonna be charged for removing a tree.
Right.
No one's gonna be charged for removing a tree.
Yeah, cause it's in that
Right.
10-foot thing.
Yeah, there's one of the, they're looking at the code in terms of trying to make more affordable housing. One of them is,
Right.
is building housing on a current owned lot, a small house, an ancillary dwelling unit.
But if you're looking at doing that, you're not going to make your tree get declared a heritage tree. You're never gonna
Well,
approve
that's
that.
true,
That
that
is
heritage
true.
tree.
If
they
you're
put down a
ever
heritage tree,
considering-
Yeah, if they
Yeah.
have a heritage tree, then that
Right.
would be
But then you
a
have to think
Yeah,
about
that's right.
transference. So at that point, if that person designated as a heritage tree, knowing that they're not going to put a ancillary house on it, meaning I would never say
Yeah.
the words properly,
That's the
but if
covenant
the
runs
new
with the
owner
land.
does this,
Right.
well, now I wanna take out that
Well, then they
big
pay the
old oak
price.
tree, pony up.
Right.
So what do you think
More
amounts to
zero.
be?
I think it should
I'm
be
gonna look
higher.
up what Portland charges.
Okay,
I'm gonna look up what Portland does, and I'll put that in, and I'll highlight that value, and I'll put a note, like I have the notes over here, I'll put a note on there, and I'll get this done probably tomorrow or the next day.
Can you explain, I wasn't following initially, the sizing of the species that are listed on the first page, what that's all about?
The,
Eligibility.
those sizes for all of the native trees, that was what was existing in the code. The only thing we changed were,
These two.
we took the redwoods out and basically said
20.
that all
Okay.
non-native broadleaf tree and conifer
All right,
trees should
all
be
right, all right.
20 inches in
So any of
diameter.
these native trees, 8 inches, or white oak,
Right.
whatever, can be considered heritage tree.
Right.
Correct, and they
That
was
size, but
diminutive,
not
it's
small.
still that one,
Right.
yeah.
Not small,
The only
okay.
ones that change are the sequoias,
Okay, all right, I get the picture. All right.
because they really are a fast-growing tree.
And since they're not native, we just lumped them in with the other conifers.
Right.
Because if I left them there, I'd make them like,
Yeah,
3
where are
feet.
the rest of the conifers listed?
well, it's other
Another
conifer
block.
trees.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
see
yeah,
down
other
below, there's
conifers.
other broadleaf tree
Oh, I
species
see, other-
and other
okay.
conifer, it should be tree
Okay, all
species
right. Okay,
Yeah, you're
to
right.
make it consistent. And they're just 20 inches or
yeah.
is the
yeah, yeah.
minimum.
Okay,
Because it's not that I'm against non-native trees, because
Right,
there's some
right.
very beautiful
That's
non.
right.
And
So,
some
and
just
that's
grow
why I
very
added the
fast.
horticultural value in that first paragraph with the purpose. I added
And the black
ecological
locust
or
could be in there.
horticultural.
Yes, you could put one in there,
Yep.
good.
especially if it's got a good story to it.
You got black locust, you're not on it?
Well, I can think of a whole bunch of black locusts around here, 20 inches more. I would say the majority of them overlooking Sportcraft Marina's parking lot, the city's boat ramp, are 20 inches now. It's a beautiful grove in the spring, really
You're
attractive.
right, that would be a great nomination area.
Then I will nominate him, I'll take the heat.
But, yeah,
And you have to bring them here and I'll argue with you.
these things.
And I'll stay,
These things
save the tree,
generate
save
through
the
roof,
tree.
don't
Yeah, they do.
I mean, if,
Well,
They seed themselves like crazy.
Yeah, they seed prolifically. as
But
I
it's
said.
like the
I
tree
pull
of
5 or
heaven.
6 out of my yard
The
every
tree
year
of
for my
heaven, the
neighbor.
city of Gladstone, I think, declared the tree of heaven a weed and they're trying to encourage everybody
you
to cut
know,
them down.
the thing is, you look
But
at.
they go through the
You
roots,
go
they
to
come up
Singer, you
everywhere.
go to Singer Creek Park now, locusts are.
Locusts are
being
every
expanded.
place.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fine to have it in there as a heritage tree, I guess, but the point is, it can be an invasive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that grove overlooking the parking lot has maintained itself very well without a bunch of suckering, I don't know why.
But then they could be seeding and there could be a whole nother grove downriver because
Yeah,
they're.
that's true, that's true.
I know I pluck them out of my yard
You might be
every
a
year
fan,
because
but
my
not
neighbors,
everybody else.
but
Yeah.
it doesn't make any difference. They're a beautiful tree, but they are not necessarily
No.
native and.
I don't think there's any tree that has more color.
Actually,
That's
English
right.
ivy has beautiful leaves.
Huh?
I said
English
English
ivy?
ivy has beautiful leaves.
Poison oak does too, but I don't
Yeah,
want
but
it.
that's indigenous.
It is, native, yeah.
It really is, that's right, that's right.
So you deserve that,
That's not the
Rash.
issue, that's not the issue.
Well, I'm looking at climate change, the
So-
locusts will take over shortly.
You pretty well took care of the plaque in here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
I think you did.
yeah. Okay, so I will rewrite this
Yeah, okay.
and
Well,
send
thank you.
it
This
back
is a great
out.
job.
Very nice job.
She-
Thank you
And
so
she's done
much.
a huge round of applause, man,
Yes.
huge round of applause.
Yeah.
And
Boy
Pete, can you
Scout girl.
check to see if what I have here matches the definition of a hazardous or diseased tree? Can you check on that
Yeah.
and let me know?
Yeah, and it may need, it may mean
And we
that
need
our
to tweak that.
definition 17.4 needs to be
Yeah,
improved.
right.
So-
Right. Or they may have, we may have done a better one before, I don't know.
Right.
So, yeah,
So
okay.
do you have a
Yeah.
application form for the city where you say?
Okay, great.
Not looking at my car.
Okay.
Is it
Okay,
one page?
Button back.
before we get
First
into
page is all the
communications, we
specifics,
should,
the second
we
part
should,
is-
folks,
Sorry.
as I said, you're gonna, it's to be shared, it's to be shared with other,
Yes,
all of
yes,
us.
right.
Now, before we come out of our regular meeting into communications, how do we want to deal with the vote?
The vote?
Yeah. My suggestion was to average the two of us or the three of us, depending on how many did the vote.
Yeah. Well, I'm only voting for two
Should I
people,
leave?
because I only saw two people. Well, I saw three, excuse me,
Yeah,
but,
yeah, so the point is, that'll be an average of three people, the others will be an average of two people,
sure,
okay?
yep.
All right. And we're turning them over to you, Pete, and you do the computations.
Oh, boy.
And the thing is, you can't have something that averages out to be something and a third.
Does anyone know why Paul?
No, he just came in and withdrew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
He's been so passionate about wetlands.
I know, but I mean, I'm sure he has
Okay.
reasons. No, he just came in and just withdrew, right
Okay.
at that moment.
And the first person was that Mayor Holliday's daughter?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
She is a professional planner, working out of Idaho. She's moved back here. She's currently working on her,
Wetland delineation
really-
certification.
very
wetland
good.
delineation
Excellent,
certification. I was very impressed.
Yeah, I was too.
Nice.
Very good. Wow.
I should have hung on the parking lot more, but I wasn't sure. I was, oh, hi, Dee. I said, oh, hi. I always kind of hide myself. I do.
You're really hard to hide, Dee Dee.
Well, but I try because I never remember anyone's name and I feel goofy when I don't because I have facial amnesia.
And actually, Dan Holliday and I were on the commission when we had that 200-foot delineation on the,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I talked to Bob Mahoney since we're talking here. Were you on the council planning commission when the 200-foot thing became 50? You said, I've been on here for 9 years or something, 8 years. He said, I don't remember this ever coming before us. That's what he told me.
Well, he's older than I am. Of course he doesn't remember. I don't remember.
Okay, all right. Well, and I told Pete this today, my attitude about that is unfortunate, but the Cove has so many other considerations with mitigation requirements mitigation opportunities coming forward, and the money that goes with them, that the setback will be way back more than that, just because of the need to create more habitat under mitigation funding from other sources, I think.
All right, so 2 plus 1, 3. 3 plus 2 plus 3. That's Jerry. Sierra, 4 plus
These are the totals.
1. Those are the totals.
Okay, we have to divide them.
Yep.
Divide that by 3, that's 1. Divide, that's going to be 2 2/3. 9 divided by 3 would be 3. This will be 2 2/3. And 5 divided by 3 would be 1 2/3.
Statistician at work.
Okay, here's what we got.
Actually, I should have sat on the interview so I could have the big vote.
I will tell you, here's what we have. Marie Holiday has number 1, Dee Dee and, how did she?
Sierra.
Sierra is 2 2/3 and, but that's for third place, actually. So actually, it's
Okay.
Mike and Marie.
Excellent.
Mike and
Good deal.
Marie. But what I would like to do, I would actually, I would like to take an action, maybe next time, to actually form a Heritage Tree Committee under the auspices, under our auspices, and then talk about how many members should be on it, and, Dee Dee, of course, would be on that.
Yes,
On
yes.
that.
No, it's passionate to me, and
I agree with
I
that.
kind of have a plan
So,
for it,
let's
but
have that on as basically a
Right.
subcommittee
That's a good idea.
operating under the,
Yeah.
under the,
Yeah.
what are we, natural resource?
Natural
Committee.
resources.
Right.
Hey, Bob Murray doesn't remember, I don't remember
They
the name of this organization.
that subcommittee could do the initial assessment of the tree, go out and look at the tree, and make
Right.
sure it looks
Give
good,
them a
and then
field work.
report back to the committee.
Yeah, but
so then
also
the
to help
committee-
us,
Right.
bring
bring,
Public Works.
What about
Right.
Public
having
things to
DD
the
help
trees.
form that committee?
well, that'll be that'll be the action we'll take in the next meeting, and
Okay.
have an actual
All right.
discussion about
Good.
that.
Yeah,
And then, I would hope we'll have a full board at that point.
yeah, because no one's taking more interest from this tree thing than
Well,
what you have, of course.
We'll have a full board.
Nancy's
on this
made
one,
the
but
changes,
point
I've
is that-
just been the,
But no one's passionate
No,
about
you
this
have
issue.
Oh, I
been
understand that.
instrumental in like,
Yeah.
should we do, should we do this,
it's,
should we do that?
it's, a heritage tree thing is an important thing in our city.
Yeah, it is.
And, because that was what will make our natural resources areas strong.
Right.
Or Enrod strong, because it means you can't encroach your Enrod into
Yeah,
your idea of what you think was.
right, and I believe the bylaws allow for the formation of ad hoc committees, right? I believe they do.
We'll check that out before the next meeting,
Yeah, right.
and if not, we'll take some action.
Yeah, I think they do, but I'll
Yeah.
check.
And you know what, that all it does is bring in more public, comment and more public involvement. So that's what we're after, is that what we're trying to get?
Yep, that's
So,
exactly.
you know, the more the merrier,
wanna see
that's all I
this room
say.
packed.
Embrace more the merrier.
Okay, now for communications.
Okay,
All right.
Anything you wish to share?
Oh, I've been emailing and communicating like crazy. However, I've not gotten oodles and noodles of responses. But I have made some, really wonderful things. With the Oregon City Parks Foundation, we were thinking, how do we bring attention to the Swifts? Took one phone call and a visit with the Oregon City, the downtown Oregon City Committee. And I'm gonna get everyone's name wrong, but she starts with a C and I wanna say her name is Carrie. Just visiting with her, she is going to put up Swift signs and that every evening when the sun is setting, please come out and
Good.
visit for an hour before.
Excellent.
I told her, I said, this is what they're doing. We have two areas. The Audubon Society already is studying Oregon City, two locations, the Chimney downtown and Oregon City High School. And I said, why don't we make just a little picture of a Swift? And she goes, oh, I have a pattern. I said, yes, in your windows. And I said, let's use that one. She goes, okay, let's paint it with chalk and we'll write down sunset every day for the 3 months that the Swifts are flying. And we're gonna put it on the A-frames at the bottom of the elevator, at the top of the elevator. And when they put their kiosks, we have trifolds already to print.
Do you have any knowledge as to whether that is a functioning chimney?
Don't know, but I know that they do not want to keep it. They are thinking about condemning it. Now,
the one downtown,
the owner, yeah, and
No.
that's only hearsay. It's only hearsay, so I
No.
could be purporting wrong.
Well, the
which
thing
chimney?
is.
the one
I think we should
downtown,
check
it's
this
in the
out and see if-
breweries, that beer thing
Oh,
on
the
the
brewery,
corner.
yeah,
I think it's
okay.
in that building, or between that
It's
building and the
old
next
Cochrane
building.
Store,
Yeah.
that's the building.
But it's an awesome show, I mean, that,
It is an
There
awesome
there
show.
were thousands of
And when
birds.
talking to the Audubon Society, they said, oh, we come out there every year wondering where they're going to go. Will they go to Oregon City High School or will they go downtown? It depends on which predators start attacking the birds first and they go, oh, let's switch locations. And then they switch locations. They have scheduled
Now,
watchers
Which high
there.
school are we talking about, the old one or
The
the?
Oregon City High School, the old one.
The old one.
The old one.
Okay.
yeah. The one by my house that I've never seen them at.
I wasn't aware they went.
And I used to go there
didn't know that
back when my son was in middle school
Well,
and I saw them there then,
Okay, what I wanna do.
30 years ago.
I wanna, I think it'd be nice of us if we could talk to the owner and see if there's some kind of incentivization, even if it's a monetary one, to
Yep.
keep that chimney.
Right, definitely.
correct.
Definitely.
And then really start marketing the Swifts.
Right, this
as
needs to be
part of-
publicized, because
Yes, we
think of
do.
the people who would come to Oregon City and eat in the restaurant and then go watch the Swifts.
You can't even get parking when you go downtown to watch them. You can't even park in the neighborhood.
I always go at the
There's
top of the
that
hill.
much.
Crowd is watching. Have you seen?
Hundreds. My son and I used to go, hundreds of people go down and watch it.
And up
you
on
can't
top,
even
like,
get
I
parking.
stood at the top of the elevator this last
No,
year,
I'm
I
talking
took
about
the Girl
Portland.
Scouts. Oh,
In
yeah,
ours, we still.
thousands of people go to
I mean,
help, yeah.
try not to.
But there's
you
still
know.
quite a few people
Right.
in Oregon City, and
I thought
like,
they were
I've been on the
doing
top of the elevator.
Right, and then also, if we're promoting the
That's
Swifts,
$10.
there's no reason at this point, we also
Are you
couldn't
sure?
do Swallow Nest all
That may
along
not be his building.
the promenade.
I'll talk to him.
Because we could also, we have quite a swallow population that is in there.
There are a lot of
And if
swallows.
we give them proper nesting, then I think we could get a swift and swallow population.
Yeah,
And I've
the
been-
question is, how do we maintain the chimney?
Yeah, the chimney is the main thing.
Well, if we can't maintain
That's
that
what
chimney,
that's
we
right.
might consider getting a grant to build a new structure that is
Metro enhancement
that would
grant,
be
let's go for it.
the perfect swift
They don't
structure with
like
the
new
little
chimneys.
cup. Huh?
There's something about the way chimneys past a
Built,
certain
and they
date,
have a whole thing on television where they're concave, and they have to have a little lip across them.
but it's also how the material they're made of.
Yes, they have to be scratchy on the inside so that they can
Right.
clap onto them.
Because new
and-
chimneys, birds, the
true?
birds
Too
won't
hard.
nest in new
Right,
chimneys.
they don't like the new bricks. And then they have to be lapped over because they're three predators that can completely change their whole direction, whether they want to be there out in the Cooper hawk and, well, hawks are their best.
Sharp-shinned hawk, Cooper
Yeah,
hawk, and.
thank you.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
so anyway, we could actually, if we can't get them to decommission it, maybe we can say, can we put somewhere over there and build if we get
Even
enough
if
people coming?
they could still leave the chimney up
This
above,
is-
and we
hold-
could,
hold-
Getting too far, all right,
hold
so,
it.
you're right, my
minute.
communications is going on.
Just a minute.
I've squirreled.
Pete, can you find out who the actual owner of that building is?
right?
Yeah.
Now,
All right, so I will quit my,
It's the Cochrane Building.
Cochran?
yeah, who owns the Cochrane Building? And, so if we're going to do something about it, we need to find out who we're gonna be talking to.
right.
Right.
But anyway, that is something we can possibly really develop
Yeah,
along with
good
Swifts. And
idea.
I've also got some information into PG&E, because they just recently put up, another heron, well, not recently, about a year and a half ago. A heron platform just right outside of Canby.
You're
Just-
talking about an
Or
osprey.
Kenema.
Osprey.
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 What'd I say, heron?
Heron.
I always, God, don't trust me on a dang word.
That one in
A name
Kenema's been there
word.
years.
It is, but they fell down and they just rebuilt it again. Apparently someone hit it with a car and then they came back and rebuilt it. And so there's been some activity there, but not a full-on
They're not back
nest.
yet.
Not nest, but they
There was a
they come
nest
and look
last
at
year.
it. Ah,
There was a nest last year.
Almost-
right, then
almost
that's on
every
the new
year
one.
When I lived down in that area, the osprey, there one utility pole there on the
Right.
pole side,
Yes.
always has
Right.
a nest there.
I got-
And I
yes.
actually saw in the air 3 of juveniles, they actually brought 3 of them into,
Ah.
1 year, 3 of them.
Right.
Must have been an experienced couple to do that.
Yeah,
But, so I got to see all 3 of them, and of course, the young ones screeching as they went down, they had a great time.
I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
So
Great
if
time.
we can encourage more waterway animal,
And there's a lot
foliage,
of, there's also a lot of bald eagles. I mean,
Right.
I've been down Clackamas Park and watched the bald eagles.
You can be up
chase
at
the
Park
ducks.
Place
Every
and
day.
you see
Yeah.
bald eagles
Yeah.
up in Park Place because the
So we
trees are
could
up
make
there
this a
and there's.
bird,
Right.
We could-
watching.
We could be a huge bird watching area because we have that whole park along there.
2 years ago when they did the, and I don't know how scientific these daily surveys of bird counts are.
Yes.
But Abernathy Creek had the largest number per linear mile of stream of any
Really?
stream in Oregon.
They're actually
Oregon?
very fairly
Wood ducks,
accurate.
wood ducks,
Oh, wood ducks.
Ooh, how
wood ducks.
interesting, yeah.
wood ducks.
Yeah. So I think that we should start embracing our birds. And I think that we can really make a really huge, anyway, that will be coming forward. And hopefully we can expand upon that.
Yeah.
And then, so I squirreled up on that, and I did about 4 other things, but I can't remember now, because I got so excited about swifts and swallows.
Bird
And
head.
herons, which are really osprey.
Okay, where did my drawings go that you gave me? Somebody got them around here?
Oh, I might.
Someplace, the big
I
pile.
have this one.
There, that's,
Oh, here.
yeah, okay, good, okay, all right. June 1st, that's a Saturday. The River Assets and Opportunities Task Force is going to hold another one of our successful, we think, electric boat tours, one at 10 a.m. and one at 1 p.m. And this time, we're calling the Backwater event, not because this area's in a backwater, because the Columbia is gonna back up the Willamette, as it always does, especially with the spring runoff we should have this year. And we're gonna go into people's backyards in West Lynn. We're going to go all the way around Clackamas, Rapids Island, Goat Island. We're gonna go in the Cove, because it'll be high enough, really look at things closely, so that's open to all of us. I'll let you know more details, but we'll do that.
That first one was awesome.
Pardon?
That one I went on was awesome.
Yeah, it was fun, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was great.
Yeah, but the river was very low. This will
Yeah.
be, I'm gonna say 15 feet higher than low
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
which will be really neat. And to go on the backside of Clackamas Rapids Island, there's lots of heron rookeries in there and things like that, so. I was gonna ask a question of the group, if you heard about the sea lion, harvest, what's going on? I have not heard. They're being
But I
very
know they're
quiet
doing it.
about it.
I just heard they were doing it, but I haven't heard any figures.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I still see, I sit up and watch, I sit up and watch the, river on a regular basis. I'm still seeing little blackheads popping up, so I still know there's still plenty of sea
Well,
lions in
they're
there.
not
But
supposed
if-
to eliminate them.
I know it,
No, I
I'm
mean,
just,
they're
I'm just
talking
saying.
about a specific numbers over time.
About 100, so, all right, that's my only comment.
And they used to be harvested in the past. So,
Indians used to
Yes, they
dispatch
did.
them routinely.
and, yep, so.
Nancy?
I don't have anything, just the heritage tree code.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I'll mention, because Jerry brought it up last time, is the Clackamas, there's a Clackamas partnership of, in terms of seeking grants from OWEB to do projects on Johnson Creek, essentially Kellogg Creek, that's the North Clackamas Urban Watershed District Council. Of course, the Clackamas Basin Watershed Council and the Oregon City Watershed Council. Up until 2 years ago, they had open solicitations for grants coming into OWEB, and they were always 2-year grants. 2 years ago, they awarded 2 that would be over 3 biennium. And so the partnership would identify the projects over that time to do. And we were out of the listing initially. We made our case again, and they were able to include the Clackamas River Partnership as a grantee. Jerry tends to exaggerate, and he said something like $16.5 million. It's about,
Wasn't it?
no, it's $6.5 million.
I thought it was
The
12,
6-year period.
total of 12 over
No.
6 years. No?
It's less than that.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
It's less than that. At least that's what Cheryl McGinnis told me. I asked her and she's recorded. I'll have to double check on that. and see
yeah,
what
I
it
got
is.
my information, John Borden is a member of the Basin Council.
Well, then he probably knows. He probably's right.
Yeah,
Okay. So anyway, there will be projects coming onto Abernathy Creek and Newell Creek as part of it.
Excellent,
good,
good, yay.
very good.
Round of applause, those are really important creeks that keep healthy in our community.
What he told me, John Borden is a person I grew up with, very active with Governor McCall's era and all that, was that the problem they're having now, maybe you know about this, is that they have all this bureaucratic stuff, intergovernmental agreements, and one layer after another of very technical stuff that the Basin Council must come up with to access those funds.
Wait a minute. The partnership, not the base.
The partnership, okay, excuse me, the partnership. Okay, so, and they're trying to wade through that, and they're kind of shocked at, government, that's the way government works.
Well, yeah, but Cheryl McGinnis is.
Very good.
And John Rennan are the 2 prime
Right.
on this to put it
Right.
together. Also, Brian Bond with Metro is working out some of this stuff too. He's got a lot of
Okay.
experience with it. Yeah, it's a little, I mean, It's a process like
Yeah.
any other government.
Well, it's a wonderful opportunity too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
so that'll be going on there.
Good.
That's great.
I want to hear about what you, if you don't mind, what you're doing down at Linfield with your program.
Well, last spring, the seniors in the environmental studies program wrote an OWEB grant
Oh,
for $15,000 to begin doing a restoration project on Cozine Creek as it flows through the campus. The college actually owns
Okay.
a section of natural area that's been pretty much a weed patch. And facilities has recently been doing some work, and we've been doing volunteer ivy pulls and blackberry cuttings and digging up and stuff. But last year, they got the grant. So the
Good.
seniors wrote the grant, and they wrote a few other grants to get additional native plants to plant in the area once the blackberries are gone. And so that started last summer.
Wow.
And so they got about close to $18,000 in grant money, which was just awesome for those kids. And it already looks like amazing down there. In fact, they're doing another spray, I think they're doing an ivy spray this weekend. We've hired a contractor to do the work down there, who's really good, and so it's really impressive. And the thing about down there is, yeah, there's a lot of invasive species. We did an inventory and assessment down like 3 years ago, and found out that although there's a lot of invasives, there also were a lot of really nice natives even along the bank. So, it's worth restoring, and we have the largest patch of camasilla lily in the city of McMinnville.
Oh, yeah.
It's
can I
just,
ask
you
a
go down in
question?
April, it's just beautiful.
Okay, Oregon City Parks Foundation just did an inventory of all the trees that the volunteers over the mini ivy pulls, you do the lectures and you've been there. We just did an inventory with Lisa, Roger and I. We've rung over 408 trees in Waterboard Park alone.
removed the.
Remove the ivy off the trees, not, I know that is the wrong verbiage, it has to be a great thing about unchoking the trees of ivy maybe. And then on our second spray, I think we're ready to do our third spray. And then since we had an area that we cleaned out so much that we're able to take over, I think all these figures are correct or close to it, an additional 4.5 acres that we can spray
Wow.
for ivy. So we are still doing our volunteer ivy ringing or unchoking of the trees on Sundays and Saturdays, willy-nilly, and then we still have 4 organized polls or
Cool.
The amazing
removals of
thing
Vegas.
with all this exposure, this cover gone,
right.
is you can see this tremendous landslide, slough that's going on with the boring basalts, boulders every place. I mean,
It's getting to be
you can
really
see it coming
dangerous.
at you.
How many feet per minute, like, what's the slide at the coast, it was moving something like 6 feet an hour or something.
There are areas that
I know, but no,
You can totally see it is
Yeah.
moving.
Oh, yeah.
And there, if you measured the one road, you
Yeah.
could probably see it's moved 5 or 6 inches
Yeah.
over the period of 2 years.
Right.
However, now that the ivy's dying back, all of a sudden you are seeing how the rocks topple together and have these huge, really very interesting tunnels up, and they come up in other areas. There must be dens of all type. I keep thinking I'm gonna see a little face look at me when I go down there. But you're walking it going,
You're not gonna
we
see the
need.
face. They will be going down further
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, I know, but I'm afraid of it going, hey, oh, hello, run. But it is, you can see how it's just been toppled in there. It's fascinating as the ivy is beginning
When
to
you're
die back.
removing the ivy from there, are the native plants coming back? Or do you know yet,
You know, I
it's too
don't know
early?
yet because I staked a whole area on 3 poles with stakes, little green stakes with little blue tags on them that I
Right.
made where trillium were.
Thing
And
is,
then, and last year I saw trillium, but not as many.
I mean, with all the boulders and so forth, there are areas where you can get plants in, but there's not a lot of soil.
There is not a lot of soil,
Right.
but there are my marker, I have these two sets of trillium that the leaves get the size of platters. So those are my markers. And they came up last year. I'm waiting to see if they come up this year because that has been a sprayed area. And those have gotta be some old trilliums, but it's only two of them. But the leaves are truly this big.
Yeah.
They're
Oh, yeah.
they're incredible. They,
yeah.
I've never had a trillium come up that big. I've never seen one that big. And I
We had
take a lot of
talked-
fun
we
pictures,
as
but
a
I've never
committee
seen that. It's
And
that
the Parks
size.
Foundation had talked about, and that was my hope too, that the Department of Geology and Mineral Industries would be approached with a request to consider it a significant geologic area. And now when you see what's going on there, despite, in addition to the road slumpage and everything else that's going on, this is perfectly eligible kind of candidate. It doesn't necessarily mean money, it means designation.
Right, right.
Wouldn't it be neat to get Dr. Scott Burns here, a future agenda item, maybe with Parks
Yeah.
Foundation folks?
Be
And see if
wonderful.
he would be willing to lead that cause.
He's in New Zealand
Because
right
we've
now.
got a really unique thing there.
I've never seen a top lift rocks like this.
My recollection is that's one of our goals.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You're right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I'm very excited
I've
about
got
it.
some emails from Dr. Burns about that procedure to the best of his knowledge, but he also had some other leads to follow.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he indicated that hasn't been done. I mean, the Ogami hasn't done that kind of a designation
What?
on a geological site. I think that's what his email indicated.
Yeah, I think what he had said was, gosh, it's something that's definitely, it may have been more prevalent through for the highway department to designate it, but I don't know. So I think it's worth contacting ODOT to see what, if any, program still exists through them as well. Because at least there's, a federal link there and a body, and then we've got this other procedure that we need to follow up on via the, what's the name of it? The Board of Geographic Names. Yeah, which is the federal body.
There's where Natural Resource Committee is going through that, there's two members of that board that we've been communicating in terms of the stream naming.
Okay, yeah, great,
And
yeah,
there's something like, in a given year, those nominations for names have to be in there by November or something.
yep, there's a set of procedures that they've published,
Right.
it's kind of hard to find, but
But
it's
it,
there.
Well, they showed us a form,
It's-
and actually it was not that complicated of a form for
It's-
stream naming.
Right,
Now, in terms of geologic,
Okay.
significant geological areas, I don't know.
right, so it's a, Federal Register statutory rule or something or other, it's all embodied in federal
Yeah.
legislation.
Okay, it's your turn.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
I just sent everybody an email with those little big list of future agenda items. I don't know how many of these are actually gonna get tackled in, April, but the list is there. And it includes, let's see. Sorry. 1 second, okay. Discussion of the formation of Heritage Tree Subcommittee, election of offices following the appointment of Mary Holiday and Michael Hamilton. Pursue possible Metro Habitat grant for bird habitat along promontory or similar sites. Heritage Tree Code updates, Nancy. Let's see, we are asking Public Works for an update on the Stormwater Master Plan. Haven't heard back from them yet. We are gonna provide a transcript of the minutes of the Planning Commission decision of the Cove in 2008 and possible video, which may not necessarily be an agenda item, but we're gonna provide that anyway, so we'll see. An idea I had was how to, that staff will head up ways to increase public participation at these meetings and get an audience. And that's just an idea that I want to brainstorm on. We want an update on the Willamette Falls Legacy Project from Metro and city staff. They have some new staff that are here at the city working on the next phase on the Riverwalk, and I want to coordinate with them and get them before you for a presentation. So that's future agenda items that I've listed so far. As far as news goes, we're coming up on the Enhancement Day, Oregon City Enhancement and Arbor Day celebration.
When is that?
Let me just pull that up. Where I just had it, April
20th?
the, there it is. Okay, the event is going to be Saturday, April 6th, 2019, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center. You can pre-register online, receive a free t-shirt. Beginning at 8:30 is pre-registration. There will be a guest speaker who's going to share information about the trees of the trail, fruit seeds and grafted trees that journeyed into the Oregon Territory. Then there'll be a tree, shrub, flower planting and spreading bark, various informational booths and light refreshments. Please bring tools for personal use, including gloves, shovels, pruners, loppers, rakes, wheelbarrows, push brooms, etc., and dress for the weather.
So that's mainly in the Oregon Trail?
I think that's where it's staged. There's probably going to be some other
some
satellite
other
type things going on, but it doesn't state what those are here.
Okay.
So it is being managed through the Parks Department and the Code Enforcement Department, as it has been.
So is this a normal citywide thing?
Yeah, it is.
So it is, it probably would
with
be a
John-
distribution point.
John Waverly is also incorporating the Arbor Day tree planting as well. And there's support from Oregon Community Trees and Tree City USA. So they've given some additional support for public involvement and plants as well. So that's going on. An idea that I had was quarterly, we are asked to give information or articles for the Trail News. And it's published through our Community Services Department, and they have a editorial staff contracts, and they will take articles up into a certain deadline. So if the NRC would like to suggest in the future articles to incorporate into that any quarterly edition, I thought it'd be a good way to get further involvement in the NRC.
Maybe get something about the heritage tree, once we get
Heritage
this
trees,
code
right.
tweaked.
invasive species, ivy removal.
Yeah,
And actually, they have a nice glossy cover. Let's do it so that we actually get one of our heritage trees on the cover.
Yeah, you can suggest really nice, good quality photos for the cover. So that's a possibility too, yeah. As you may know, Denise McGriff has been appointed to the Open City Commission
saw that in the paper.
position, and that's really exciting. Bringing her experience to bear from all her volunteer activities over the last few years, including a lot of time dedicated to the Planning Commission.
Yes, indeed.
So that's great, and she'll be a great asset. And that's all I have.
Oh, I wanted to bring up one other
If you have any
thing
questions.
that I forgot, and now I forgot it again. With Dee Dee and I.
Would it be about the Mother's Day sale that the Layeret Park's doing of plants? Okay, yeah.
Plant sale
Yeah, they're doing a plant sale on the Mother's Day at Layeret Park.
at Lateral Park.
Yeah.
It's gone.
I was just wondering if that was on your mind.
Well, I send out that email for future agenda items, so if you just, when it comes to you, shoot me back an email and I'll get back to the group, but if you want to,
Well, since you're not gonna come up with something,
I'm not. With that,
wait a minute.
you had your time.
Avoid it.
So did I.
Dead air time, throw something in, throw
I won't let
something
Dee
in.
Dee come back. I won't let Dee Dee come back. I'll let Dee Dee
We
come
submitted
back.
for the Historical Society a joint grant to plant the promenade, all the way from the elevator to at least the hill above the VFW hall. And we've made, 80% of that is now done. and there
Wow.
are bulbs that are gonna start blooming
Oh,
immediately.
that's, you put the
We're the
tulips
ones that did
up.
that, and then,
Good on
then
you.
I'm going in to look at the source of wildflower mixes tomorrow from a company that used to be called Hobbs and Hopkins in Portland, where they
Oh.
specialized in seed.
I remember.
And so we'll be dressing that out with poppies and all sorts of stuff. They're special mixes. I've gotta look at what
But are
they've
they
got.
just
natives?
looking at-
Most of the wildflower mixes are natives to here.
Yeah, natives
There
and-
are
and drought
actually,
tolerant ones.
there's several nurseries that do have native Oregon wildflower seeds.
Right, they have both there.
But- okay,
They have
all
both
right,
sources. Anyway, so, I want you to know that there should be a immediate effect of stuff that is blooming now, because I wanted to see an immediate result. But it has not been easy, because we can't be outside the wall, which was my agreement.
Right.
So we have 20-foot-long rakes, okay, on aluminum poles.
Wondering how you did that.
20-foot-long hose, 15-foot-long rakes, spring steel type rakes and so forth, and techniques like that to make it safe. And we've not pushed anything over the side onto the cars below, which is tricky, it's very narrow there.
Yeah, it is. I was
Yeah.
really impressed.
So,
Or under the train for Pete's
or onto the
sake.
trains.
Yeah.
So the trains I worry about less than I do the cars.
Well, I don't
you
know,
But,
like
you know,
what?
one way or the
A
other.
boulder going through the train windshield. I
Yeah,
think.
anyway, so you should begin to see quite a result. And then part of that grant was to restore the grounds of the Museum of the Oregon Territory, which is looking much better than it has in a long time. They just haven't had anybody to care for anything there. So that will be also dressed out with wildflowers too.
Excellent.
So especially on the
nice.
side
Are
that you
they
see
gonna-
from 99E, there's a bluff that you look up that's full of grass. That's almost gone now. That'll be dressed out with wildflowers too. So anyway.
Excellent.
I never want to do this again. It's just it's so tricky,
Yeah.
and I try to get several contractors in there to do things and oh my God, we don't have anything to do with this. So
Well-
20-foot rakes work fine.
Very good.
Maybe we can.
Okay,
All right, we're done.
oh, anything, nothing else in the good of the order?
Nope.